Hello and welcome. Stay a while and listen. Greetings, exile. It is I, your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the toxic gatekeeper, the man with no plan, the OGGM, with this week's update of what's going on in the world of stuff and more stuff. And yes, what is this? May, almost June, still alive, still trying to survive the COVID-19 apocalypse. And if we survive that, we've got to deal with murder hornets. Murder hornets. Just why? Okay, what's going on in gaming news this week? Okay. Withering Codex has put out a list of brand new spells for 5e featuring, of all things, body horror. So if you wanted to add some worms exploding out of people's heads spells to your 5e game, check out Withering Codex's selection of free new 5e body horror spells. Why? But whatever. Thump 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 is out from doesn't say who's got it out. It just says that there's a free adventure out called Thump Thump Thump. I assume it's one of the new freebies over at Wizards of the Coast. Still your #1 source for a constant stream of free D&D goodness is the Wizards of the Coast free D&D page. The Altered Carbon role-playing game is now available for free order from Renegade Games Studios. So if you're not familiar with what Altered Carbon is, it is a series of books, I believe, and it's a Netflix show, and it's very trippy, especially the second season. It's body swapping and computers and space exploration and cyberpunk and gun monks and it's lots of nudity and AIs and I can't even explain it. Go if you have Netflix, watch Altered Carbon season 1 and season 2. Always room for another dystopian future space cyberpunk cold fiction that isn't Star Wars role-playing game, so we'll see what happens. Fantasy Grounds is a preview up of their delayed Mythic Odysseys of Theros. The digital version available on D&D Beyond, Roll20, and Fantasy Grounds over by June 2nd, maybe. So Theros is a Magic the Gathering set with a Greek theme. Wizards of the Coast is putting out a Theros sourcebook to convert Magic of the Gathering to Dungeons & Dragons as per the Hasbro CEO's orders from 2 years ago that he wanted Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering to go hand in hand. And a Greek-inspired source book, that's like, well, isn't original D&D pretty much Greek-inspired, and didn't Mazes and Minotaurs already do Greek-inspired D&D? So do we really need Greek-inspired D&D when D&D really is just, whatever? Okay, go check it out. Riot Minds announced a 5e version of their Celtic and Nordic-inspired setting, Truvag Adventures. It's available in its own system as Truvag Chronicles. It's on Kickstarter and it's due today. So Celtic and Nordic inspired fantasy, always good to see some, different takes on the classic fantasy. Do we need to see a 5e version of what might have been an awesome game on its own? Who knows? Crucible 7 has released a sneak peek of the second volume of the Enemy Within saga for Warhammer Fantasy Role-Playing Death on the Reich, which is due PDF early in June. So yes, what is this? The 7th version of Warhammer Fantasy Role-Playing and the 4th or 5th people to own the rights to Warhammer Fantasy Role-Playing. Definitely a different take on fantasy. Darker, more low power, more freedom to build your characters. Definitely, if you've ever played the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, it just the way the skill system and the profession system works It's different than just that sort of, cookie cutter that is Dungeons and Dragons. I enjoyed it a lot. I haven't seen the new version yet, but the old versions were great. Though it was like this freaking thick and like a $70 book, and this was back in the 80s. Comic Relief's Dungeons and Dragons special with Sue Perkins, Nisha Kuma, Sarah Pesco, and Ed Gamble is now available on YouTube. This was a charity thing done for Comic Relief. It's a bunch of comedians and people who, industry people who may or may not have played D&D before. Now they promise it's not making fun of D&D, but who knows? Ed Greenwood talks about the role of magic in the fantasy world and how to keep awe and wonder in magic over on his website, which is, something that's very much lacking in D&D and role-playing a game. Today, we're just so spoiled and so entitled by the magic and the power level and that video game mentality that to just make players think, wow, magic, cool, is really hard. Okay, so any intakes from the master himself, Ed Greenwood? Okay, Lewis Publisher examines different methods of character creation by breaking them into two classifications, stoistic and deterministic. So go over to Lewis Publish's website and check that out. The newest in Dungeons & Dragons film, the Pixar animated film Onward, is being reviewed by Michael Tresca over at his website. Onward is a great D&D film. It's like Star-Lord and Spider-Man got together to play D&D. There's a new Orostar adventure out called The Hole in the Oak for the game Old School Essentials, and Charles Dunwoody has a review of it over at his website. Sean Hillman has a review of Samurai Androids, a minimalist role-playing game where robot warriors are left in the world where their human masters have all died out. So like WALL-E, but with combat. Check that out over at his website. Mike Myler has another entry in his Epic Monster series, this time giving us the 5e stats for the World Turtle. Giant turtle whose back holds 4 elephants who themselves hold up the world, if you're familiar with Discworld. And let's see, crowdfunding news. The following crowdfundings are coming to an end this month. M20 Techno Archy Reloaded from Onyx Path, that's part of the Mage 20th anniversary. Ekphrastic Beast from Janica Stuckey ends May 28th. That's a Dungeons & Dragons monster book. The Academy of Adventure is a D&D online summer camp. 5 days where kids will learn to play D&D online. Ends May 26th. Summer doesn't start to June, so already but these are all crowdfunding. Skull Diggers as a tabletop RPG horror where villagers must defend themselves from Cthulhu. That ends on May 25th. Wickedness, a tarot card-based weirdness narrative RPG from M. Veliskik. That's crowdfunding, ends on May 22nd. Let's see, Charlie Foxtrot at Battlelord Sword Books. Everybody remember Battlelords? 23rd Century Productions. That crowdfunding ends Sunday, May 24th. Fantasy Cities and Scenes for use with fantasy RPGs by Philip Reed Games. Or, hey, here's a bunch of pictures. That crowdfunding ends May 22nd. Let's see what else is going on in RPG news. Wizards of the Coast has released yet another Unearthed Arcana, where they continue to take apart their role-playing game and try and make it more broken. Hasbro decided to cross over 2 of their most popular IP brands, Cutie Marks and Dragons, a toy set of D&D themed figures for My Little Pony. Does the world need this? My Little Pony D&D? Of course it does. Free League Publishing announced a new edition of Twilight 2000, a World War III themed apocalypse role-playing game originally released way back in the 80s by GDW. Now, copies of this game on eBay can go up to $200. It is unbelievably well-received game that did not get enough love when it was first out, and now people consider it a really great system that should have gotten more love than it has. So the fact that somebody is revisiting Twilight 2000, especially in the current political environment, good on you, boys. Okay, and what is going on with Baldur's Gate 3? We know it was announced at the beginning of 2020. Wizards of the Coast, has announced that there will be an announcement about the game coming soon. So I don't know what that means. But, with everything going on with the COVID-19, to expect anything to come out on time, yeah. Okay, here's the best news. Alliance has decided to start resuming operations as of this week. That means board games, comic books, dice, role-playing games, figures, all the things that have been held back because of COVID-19 and are sitting stacked in the warehouses across the world will now start shipping again. This is a great news for friendly local game stores, especially since friendly local game stores now fall under tier 2 of the COVID-19 shutdown rules, which means they can be open for limited hours, they can have curbside service, they can let people in, a minimum of, I think, 5, 6 people at a time, up to 10 people at a time, depending upon the size of the game store. But best and most importantly, they will now have product again. And with the 3-day weekends coming up, we have one starting tomorrow, a 3-day weekend, and then we're going into summer with all the weekends and all the long weekends. It is a great time to get board games circulating again and get dice and role-playing games and comic books and product circulating game. Now, normally a lot of game stores would use this weekend to go to conventions because the LA conventions start about now, but of course there are no conventions. They're all digital conventions, so doubly game stores need a reason to start selling off their older product, their board games, the stuff that they've accumulated over the years that they would have gone to the convention and sold. So the fact that Alliance is now shipping again is probably the best news we have, which is why I saved it for last. So if you're wondering where I'm getting all this new news, I will put the link down below. This was all sent to me from people. And this is great news. The Alliance news alone is great. So thank you, Alliance, for starting to slowly release product again. This will definitely help people make it through a long, boring summer with access to new board games, and will help game stores to start reinvigorating their economy. Yes, thank you. Best news of the product. So until next time, I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming, bringing you whatever gaming news I can find. I will talk to you losers later.